Acting Prime Minister Richard Marles has dismissed a former Prime Minister's call for Australia to play a greater role in the conflict in the Middle East. Tony Abbott warns Australia risks being seen as weak for not helping the US in its fight against the Iranian dictatorship. Let's bring in our political reporter, Isabella Tolhurst, who joins us from Parliament House. Bella, hi there. What's been the response to this?
Good morning, Lorna. Well, Tony Abbott has made a suggestion that hasn't gone down particularly well with the government, and I take it not very well with the public either. He says the Prime Minister should be picking up the phone to the White House and offering Australia's support in the United States' war against Iran. He says we should send special forces, trainers, aircraft, strike fighters all to the Gulf, and that sitting back as we have been makes us appear weak. He says we've betrayed our values and our national interest. Now, there's a couple of elements to unpack from this. In recent weeks, there has been a lack of clarity over whether or not the United States had ever actually made a formal request to Australia for assistance. We know Donald Trump has stood up and grumbled about Australia and NATO countries not coming to assist the US, but it's been unclear whether or not a request was ever made. Secondly, there's the matter of national interest and public appetite. Joining the US's war is a rather unpopular idea. The government says it doesn't even know what the objectives of the war are anymore. And there's also been a question of whether Australia would even have the military capacity to help. This has been mitigated by Australia's Chief of Defence, Admiral David Johnston. He says Australia could absolutely send a ship to the Strait of Hormuz if the government wanted to. He says it's not a question of capacity, but more a question of what Australia's strategic outlook is for this period. The government has insisted that it won't become involved in the war in an offensive capacity. It has sent that plane, the Wedgetail, to the United Arab Emirates following a request from them, but there doesn't seem to be much more appetite within government to do more than that. Here's what Acting Prime Minister and Defence Minister Richard Marles had to say.
Australia has been present consistent with our national interest, but having said all of that, we've not been a part of this conflict against Iran, and in that we are in the company of virtually every other country in NATO. So we will act in our national interest, and we respectfully disagree with the position of Mr. Abbott.
So it's looking unlikely that this will happen, at least in the way that Tony Abbott is calling for. Australia, however, has signed a joint statement with other countries like the UK and France, who have agreed to help in any way to help keep the Strait of Hormuz open. The government hasn't clarified what exactly that will involve yet, and Richard Marles, when asked this morning, wouldn't speculate.